Hey, it's Mike here, and today the fascinating world and rising trend of no longer carnivore videos.
Today, I'm quitting the carnivore diet.
Why I am no longer carnivore.
I've been following the carnivore diet for a length of time, and I just can't do it anymore for several reasons.
My body must have been missing something that I wasn't getting because this broccoli, I'm telling you, it was more delicious than bacon.
We are going to go over the reasons I became very sick after nearly 8 years of following a carnivore diet.
And then in the last year leading up to the stroke, I had gone to the very high saturated fat carnivore diet.
You went from roughly less than 10 grams of carbs a day, whatever's in the glycogen of the dead animal, and then to 275.
And it just started turning into like a carnivore cult.
Carnivore diet is like a cult.
But clearly, I was vitamin C deficient.
And my testosterone, it took a nosedive.
Bad muscle cramps, heart palpitations, sleep disturbances. My testosterone was kind of going down.
And then my gym performance went and my bowel movements changed, and not for the better.
I know that I raved about the carnivore diet a few months ago and changed my mind, and I admit I was wrong.
I have now gone to a whole foods plant-based eating plan.
Immediately I was just more full, so I wasn't as stringy, and I noticed my joints weren't as terrible.
And when I told my carnivore diet friends this, they would get all defensive.
So we're gonna look at all of those videos, which is really just the tip of the iceberg of ex-carnivore videos. And there's a lot of people that probably should quit, like this dude who had a heart attack and double bypass on his carnivore diet, but he's just gonna keep on trucking. I've been seeing these videos around, but the one that really sparked this video response was a recent one by Lillie Kane, a YouTuber whose no longer carnivore video is approaching 250,000 views, even though it's really recent. And this one was a bit different for a few reasons. First of all, it was maybe the first time I've seen the comment section just like almost entirely support her and not just be like, you did it wrong, like you're stupid. And also that she had some great commentary on the actual carnivore movement itself. And I think compared to ex-vegan videos, these hold particularly a lot of weight because this movement is founded on anecdotes. You know, even the closest thing they have to a study is just a bunch of self-reported anecdotes. And then we have a vegan diet, which, you know, just quick refresher, across the board shows lower disease rates, whether it's cancer or diabetes, etc. This video, we're just gonna go ahead, observe this trend like a floating piece of driftwood that also cites studies. Let's go. So after looking at a bunch of these videos, why are people quitting? Well, there generally is a health reason. There's also some social reasons, and again, criticisms of the movement itself. And in terms of health, I wanna say this isn't a video meant to go through all of the health issues on a carnivore diet. I've covered that quite a bit in other videos, and if you just wanna see that, you can of course go to an Instagram like Carnivore Cringe and see all of the months of yo-yoing between, you know, explosive diarrhea and hardcore constipation, or other ones that the term TMI doesn't do justice for. But we will cover some health stuff, but that new thing really here is the criticism of the movement in its entirety, and that brings me to Lillie Kane here, the video that sparked this one.
We've got a lot to talk about. I'm already sweating over here. I feel like I've got a lot to get off my chest.
Well, it seems like her main reasons for quitting were health. She has 3 points, which we will get to, but let's just start out with that criticism of this sort of lack of transparency in the carnivore community, or straight out, you know, dishonesty.
And as I would do more interviews with guests, they would say things to me off camera, like, Lillie, I will just film my food and then turn off the camera and stop recording and then add my seasonings and my hot sauce to my meats. And I was like, oh, so you hiding stuff.
I find this funny because this is exactly what I hypothesized in my recent carnivore myths debunked video. But I've seen many times carnivore doctors just completely denying there's no such thing as scurvy on a carnivore diet. Nobody gets it. I don't think it's super duper common because people are probably like cheating and other things that we're gonna talk about here. But, you know, James Blunt, the singer, got scurvy on his carnivore diet. I don't know why they never mention that. I'm scurvyful, it's true. But it is the case that the comment section also was wildly agreeing with this lack of transparency. Anyway.
And it just started turning into like a carnivore cult where people were more focused on being strict rather than on being healthy.
And yeah, she basically calls it a cult, which I think is really interesting because it's a theme that we're gonna see through other ex-carnivore videos. But let's just lightning round her health issues, because why not? Well, first of all, she said that her and her partner both had high levels of ferritin or iron stores.
Then we got Bryce's blood work done, and his blood panel also showed that his ferritin was slightly elevated, and also similar to me, his copper was a little bit low.
Which is sketchy because many studies associate high ferritin with increased mortality. Perhaps it's the oxidization of that iron. And it's also wild that they reached that by consuming that much of a class 2A carcinogen, red meat, which of course has that heme iron. That's one of the reasons it was put on the WHO's list. Anyway, they're eating less red meat and taking copper to balance that out. But the next one has to do with glucose. Yes, she said that her glucose was actually going too low at night, and she wasn't the only person in this video that said that.
And then lately, I've also been incorporating another piece of fruit, so 2 total servings of fruit a day, because I wore a CGM for a month. And when I was eating my animal-based 60 grams of carbs a day or less diet, my blood sugars were going too low at night.
This is a new one to me, and she's remedying it by making sure to eat 2 servings of fruit per day. She also said that carbs help her in the gym, which we'll see a lot of people say. And then also that broccoli was just amazingly delicious, which I thought was funny.
Anyway, so in September 2023, I bought broccoli, and holy smokes, it was so delicious. I was like, wow, since when did broccoli ever taste this good?
Her thyroid was also at the bottom of the normal range, which concerned her. And then a major issue for her is her scalp dermatitis and that flaking. And she says it started when she started her carnivore diet, but to be fair, it was also when COVID happened, so she thinks it could have been that. However, COVID's been gone for a while. She kept with that, low carb carnivore diet, and it wasn't getting better for years. And not to just poo-poo on her personally, but in terms of the things that she did and just how a carnivore tackles problems, her solutions were to put egg yolks in her hair, put beef fat, put tallow in her hair. But I should just mention, there are other solutions like Ketoconazole shampoo, which has been shown in randomized control trials to be highly effective for scalp seborrheic dermatitis for decades. And the last couple points, she didn't seem too concerned about her high risk level of LDL that she flashed in the beginning. I mean, that would be my main reason for quitting, but that does fit into her remaining on a, pretty high animal-based diet still, despite adding carbs, because she says when she added carbs, things like acne happened, which I think is really unfortunate because a lot of that was dairy, which is heavily linked to acne. And also she went straight to white rice. I don't know why not, brown rice. And now for a quick break with today's sponsor, Complement Essential. Hey, I'm a naive treasure hunter about to enter this ancient temple against all of the warnings of the local population. They just don't understand capitalism. Let's go. Wow, it's so ancient and adventure-y in here.
Seek the complement puzzle and you will be complimented. Or die if you fail.
The f was that? I did not sign up for this, and by this I mean listening to people. Oh, a puzzle. Looks like I just need to rotate these mysterious symbols that look kind of like vitamins or other nutrients. Huh. Whoa, looks like some kind of crazy door is opening.
You have unlocked the ancient complement essential multi-nutrient.
And I found the treasure at last, another day of successful exploitation.
You can now conveniently get all of your nutrients for plant-based eating, like vitamin B12, D, long-chain omegas, and way more in one.
And if you want to try Complement, you can click the link below and use the code Mike15 for 15% off your order.
You got lucky this time, but maybe don't just go randomly exploiting ancient temples.
Anyway, let's move on from her case to 50 Plus Beauty, YouTuber that I have covered in the past who had a stroke while on a carnivore diet. Here she is.
4 months ago, just under 4 months ago, I had a stroke. Leading up to the stroke, for 4 years, I was on the keto diet, of which I was very high meat and butter and cheese and that kind of thing. And then in the last year leading up to the stroke, I had gone to the very high saturated fat carnivore diet.
I did a responsive video after her stroke when she was sort of doubling down and listening to these sort of carnivore influencers and docs out there, convincing her that it was all okay, the LDL didn't matter.
Quite honestly, I had gotten to the carnivore by listening to social media influencers who seemed to talk a good game. They seemed to have studies that supported the carnivore diet.
But on closer inspection, she says that, their science was lacking in support of the carnivore diet.
There are no long-term studies at all on the carnivore diet.
And so now, what diet did she go on to try and lower her future stroke risk?
I have now gone to a whole foods plant-based eating plan, and I also decided to go through Dr. Caldwell D. Esselson's Cardiovascular Disease Prevention and Reversal Program.
She's eating a Dr. Esselson-style diet, which goes without saying, I think is a great idea. He has his study on about 200 people, where he essentially stopped these people who had advanced artery disease, cardiovascular disease from having heart attacks and strokes over 12 years. The people who went off the diet, they had a 60% rate of those adverse events. Combine that with Ornish studies, etc. Great idea. Anyway, moving on to everybody's favorite, Paul Saladino. It's been a little bit now, and it's at a point where most people are disillusioned with him. He appears to have made almost every diet group angry at him or just annoyed with him. He was the one I mentioned in the past that had an over 500 LDL level and was just like totally fine with it, denying cholesterol.
My most recent LDL was very high. It was 533 milligrams per deciliter.
What's normal?
Less than 100 or around 100.
But they say cholesterol is needed to make hormones. Wouldn't all of that cholesterol just put his testosterone sky high on a carnivore diet? Wouldn't he be super manly? Well.
Then I learned after a year and a half that I was getting such bad muscle cramps, heart palpitations, sleep disturbances. My testosterone was kind of going down. Right now it's around 700 or 800. I've included carbohydrates in my diet for the last 2.5 years. But at that point it was going 450, 500, it was significantly lower. And my sex hormone binding globulin was creeping up. So I had electrolyte issues.
So yeah, he had several issues that led him to put carbs back into his diet. And he's not the only one of these videos that had testosterone issues in particular. We have biohacker Tuan, hopefully I said his name right.
And my testosterone, it took a nosedive. It went from 1004 nanogram each deciliter to the 550s.
He saw about a 50% drop in his blood testosterone levels, which is wild. And if people were concerned about that cholesterol comment I made, it's good to remind you that from this study, vegans had higher total and equivalent free testosterone than meat eaters and vegetarians.
My cortisol levels were off the roof. I was basically living in a constant state of adrenaline and lethargic workouts.
He also claims that his cortisol was high, which we do see on studies on ketogenic diets. Of course, people are eating a keto carnivore diet generally.
Is what they don't tell you. Like waking up in the middle of the night due to low glucose levels.
He is another one that mentions having low nighttime glucose. He said it was actually waking him up. And then I was stoked to see him also stoked about Japanese purple sweet potatoes.
And they're also great when it comes to antioxidant. They are an antioxidant powerhouse.
Yep, that's definitely a health food. And then up next we have a Dr. Surwesh Kurwadkar. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Anyway, he also appears to have had some sexual issues in the libido department.
I went pretty hardcore, like pretty strict, 0 carb for at least 6 months. And then I started to get issues. And that's when I started to experiment. So let me make that pretty clear. I'd noticed also my libido was dropping. And I've mentioned this before on the channel, sexual health is incredibly important. Reproductive health is the canary in the coal mine.
But he says once he added carbs back, his sex drive came back with force, and then he also just felt better than before.
Everything improved. My energy went up, my stress improved, this kind of stress barrier came back, my libido returned with spades, and I didn't have any side effects. I felt better than the peak of carnivore. Now that's a big thing to say on this channel because this channel has mostly been built around the carnivore diet, and I'm expecting some hate for this.
And this guy's a medical doctor. He was testing a bunch of things, and he is a case where he did have clinically low vitamin C, an actual vitamin C deficiency, not quite scurvy, so I guess it's okay.
I do want to talk about vitamin C. About 3 months into carnivore, I wanted to check them, and they were 12. Now 12 is actually very low. I was developing issues with coiled hairs and ingrowing hairs at the top of my legs. Whenever I had oranges to bump up the vitamin C, it went away. When I didn't have the oranges, it came back. But clearly, I was vitamin C deficient.
So he had coiled hairs, which is a symptom of vitamin C deficiency, which is really interesting. Again, not full-blown scurvy like James Blunt on his carnivore diet, but another case of vitamin C deficiency. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that a lot of these are cases of male sexual health. Males seem to be more likely to go on the carnivore diet anyway. Meat equals manliness, as we all know. But there is also a lot of reporting that I see just anecdotally, because that's all this is on forums of people with that sort of like stinky keto crotch or carnivore crotch, which is clearly a imbalance of microflora. Yeah, it's not just men. But moving on from smelly downstairs parts to another person that at least mentions vitamin C that I was like, what's this guy doing nowadays? Yeah, Frank Tufano did quit his carnivore diet a few years ago, and he was like one of the classic carnivore personas.
We are going to go over the reasons I became very sick after nearly 8 years of following a carnivore diet. Now, these are obviously things I realized after the fact, otherwise I wouldn't have stuck to the diet so long.
So yeah, this isn't a recent one, but I just had to touch on him quickly also because he mentions a lot of the same points on his whiteboard that I covered in my Carnivore Myths Debunked video. We're talking about how you can't get all these nutrients on a carnivore diet like people claim you can. It doesn't have everything. But typing the diet in a chronometer, a ton of things fall short. However, he says there could still be a solution to that if you really want to try hard enough.
The consumption of the entrails, especially intestines, and organs that aren't typically accessible is what is key to nutrient balance. So unless you're gutting a sheep in your backyard, you'll have to do a few things differently.
Bad crazy people, please don't kill me in your backyard. Yes, the key here is entrails for those nutrients. Does that nutrient include E. coli pathogenic bacteria? If that is the key, then he's gonna be like, try my new Ketoconazole entrails diet cookbook. To be fair, he's not eating that. I just like to make fun of him, especially ever since he like homoerotically photoshopped a hot dog in my mouth in one of his thumbnails. Anyway, YouTube tips, let's move on. Next we have a young bodybuilder, Tristan Lee, who seems to be famous for being like super lean, but he said he was plateauing in the gym, and he has a video with IFBB Pro Jared Feather and a Dr. Mike Israetel, I believe that's his name. Says he was plateauing in the gym, but then made a change. Here they are.
Implementing
Those two pictures are pretty wild.
Pretty wild.
No comparison.
So,
what were these immediate 5-day changes? I assume it was Trenbolone, but I just learned from TikTok comments.
Yeah, that change was quitting carnivore and adding carbs. He had some other benefits he covers as well, like joints.
Immediately, I was just more full, so I wasn't as stringy, and I noticed my joints weren't as terrible. Jared wanted to slowly reintroduce carbs, so just rice and sweet potato.
Okay.
And I found my digestion's like perfect with those, so I've just continued to increase and implement those.
And finally, they talk about the issues that your body has just staying in carnivore and ketosis for that long.
Carbohydrates specifically, and enough calories also, have this huge parasympathetic response to your nervous system where they put you into recovery mode.
Right.
Which is, if you're overreached and you don't have those carbs in, you're kind of in permanent mini fight or flight mode, ultra high stress mode.
Next we have Dr. Mark Morris, who has a PhD in nutrition. He talks about some carnivore health issues, but then also makes some comments in general about the movement and criticisms like that.
Number one, just some practical stuff, but also some more serious reasons that could impact my health. I always felt left out. Social stuff like dinner parties where food is cultural and social and fun. I wasn't involved in stuff like that, and my mental energy started to suffer, let alone my physical energy. That really started to fade away. After a little bit, I started trying to manage my electrolytes and stuff like that, but it never really made it better. And then my gym performance went and my bowel movements changed, and not for the better.
But he's one that goes particularly into challenging the claims of these carnivore experts online, like Chafee.
Because all these figures and people pushing the diet, which we're gonna start calling the usual suspects because they come up so often, they were only telling one part of the story. The part of the story that was convenient for them.
And the whole narrative that plants are trying to kill you, making a point that I did, that if they are trying to, they're really bad at it.
All there was to plants was toxic substances that were meant to kill you. They are doing a very bad job of it, especially the people that eat only plants and are healthy. And if anything, are only improving their health.
And finally, he was the only one that actually cited a study, so bonus points there.
This study published in 2021 actually showed that the higher intake of fruits and vegetables were actually linked to lower mortality. These foods keep you alive.
Next, we have more fitness stuff as well as criticisms of the carnivore community with Corey/Box Scholar. He says he tried to get a more balanced view and listened to Lane Norton.
So when I started my exercise program, I kept hearing from experts that you really do need carbs for your muscles.
So this is where he got the idea that he could actually make some more gains in the gym if he consumed carbs. And I have to say, based on this before picture of him on a carnivore diet and this after picture of him adding carbs back in, yeah, he looks more muscular, which is really ironic because removing meat, the thing that everybody's trying to eat to be muscly, is what allowed him to gain more muscle. And he also recalls just how wacko the whole anti-plants thing is, especially with Paul Saladino.
But Paul Saladino, he goes into grocery stores making people feel guilty about eating vegetables and going in there with no shirt. Who goes into a grocery store with no shirt and shoes?
Someone who doesn't want service?
And then starts ragging about people eating vegetables. I mean, this is like a psycho. The more I think about it, the more I think that the carnivore diet is like a cult.
But I'm happy for him. He's saying eating more fiber and all that is making him feel better.
Also, I eat a lot more fiber now. I was brainwashed into believing fiber was bad for you and, it's going to cause all these problems. You're going to die from fiber and it's going to lead to constipation and everything. Well, I haven't had that problem. I eat a lot of fiber now and it hasn't had any detrimental effects on me. And in fact, I think it makes me feel more full.
In the end, I could probably do like a 2-hour documentary responding to these videos and more, but it's clear that carnivore is no more. Well, not quite. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are still trying it, but this could be the beginning of this shift against this culture of what the carnivore diet is, of just blindly being afraid of all of these plants which are shown to be healthy, as well as, just seeing problems within the movement for the first time and everybody acknowledging them, that lack of transparency, people literally hiding that they're eating seasonings and stuff like that, which of course falls on top of the mounting health issues that are becoming more and more known in the carnivore community. I mean, I didn't even cover the whole electrolyte imbalance, heart palpitation thing that a lot of people have talked about. There's people getting folate deficiencies, but it is interesting to see just a pretty widespread, almost consensus, that people aren't seeing the gym results that they want. And yeah, that makes sense because our muscles like glycogen. And then that trend of low testosterone and sexual issues as well is interesting. But I was a little bit disappointed to see a couple things not mentioned. First of all, just, how expensive this diet is. I mean, you're eating one of the most expensive ingredients solely, which drives people to eat more of that factory farm cheap meat. I mean, you have guides like this that literally tell you to do that, so they end up doing that while criticizing vegans for like harvest deaths, which is totally hypocritical. And then perhaps more importantly, that the greenhouse gas emissions of this diet are higher than, I'm quite sure, any other diet out there. I've calculated it before based off, this Oxford study, for example. It's insanely through the roof. People don't seem to care. They weren't like, oh, I quit because I care about the planet. Nope, none of that. Anyway, if you want some extra nutritional insurance on your planet-friendly, plant-based diet, you can of course click the link below and use the code Mike15 for 15% off Compliment Essential. And let me know down below what else I missed. There's a ton of ex-vegan videos out there. If there was one of particular interest, maybe I can comment response to it. But past that, feel free to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.